This is a minute. Your minute, not mine. Just take a while to think about what you're going to do next. You can find another video. You can keep watching this video. You probably don't want me to mention anything to do with chores or commitments you might have, or tell you to go outside, which is fair enough. I'm neglecting those things too, but please, think about what's coming next. I'm not sure how often you look to the future, but I definitely do. I'm always needing to know what's next. I know what's coming in this video, but you don't. Sorry, I shouldn't tease you like that. I should be settling in this minute with you. But I'm not, honestly. I'm busy making another video. And you're busy watching this. I wonder how many people died during this minute.
Every single time somebody has ever said that cinema was dead, they were wrong. Though why shouldn't they say it? Film has often been linked with death. Andre Bazin wrote that cinema came from the same desire that makes us embalm the dead, that it's about preserving, symbolically stopping death. But he was wrong. Cinema doesn't just mummify time, it plasticizes time. It turns time into the clay for us to remold, rearrange, even reverse. And that's why across time, from the very beginning, some of the same simple miraculous tricks have continued to delight us. Reverse motion was one of the first special effects since 1896, but in 1929 Movie Makers magazine said it was dead too, writing that shots of reverse motion like these went stale long ago. But they were wrong. For the rest of cinema history, we just kept on undiving, propelling people out of the depths, turning back time, time after time, all across time.
What do you do when you've only got 10 seconds left? Do you try to take in every single detail so you fully understand your final moments? Or do you just instinctively feel as much as you can? Queers in Love at the End of the World is a 2013 Twine game by Anthology that explores this. Created for the Ludam Dare Game Jam, the game is an interactive love story making you choose what you want to do with The game makes you choose what you want to do with your lover 10 seconds before the end of the world. The timer goes by so fast that you won't see all the beautiful branching dialogues that you can choose in this moment. The creator said that the game challenges ideas of game completion and connects them to the precarity of queer love in a straight world. The completing of the game isn't important. There is no one right choice for the game to give you the best ending. You got it by choosing how you want to love. As the game states in its afterword, we have everything if we have each other. It is impossible to stop the clock, so just like the game, dedicate yourself to every queer you've ever loved, no matter how briefly, as that love has a transformative, transcendent power, even over time.
When Albert Einstein formulated the theory of general relativity in 1915, he talked about how space-time is affected by gravity. This is not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the sense of relativity you get when you put your own life on the timescale of the universe, like a temporal equivalent of those zooming out from Earth into the universe kind of videos. When you map the history of Earth onto a 12-month calendar, the entire existence of modern humans, as in biologically, anatomically modern, fits in the last 12 minutes of December 31st. Primates appeared only 2 days earlier, while dinosaurs appeared about halfway through December. By the time anyone you've ever heard of is born, people are already yelling Happy New Year. If you do the same with the history of the entire universe, then Earth itself only comes around in early September. On a cosmic timescale, your life, as well as humanity's existence, is nothing more than a blink and you'll miss it blip. This may fill you with a sense of cosmic dread and unimportance, but I hope this perspective will also inspire you to live in the moment a bit more. Because when people tell you to live in the moment, they're really just acknowledging that, relatively speaking, a moment is all we ever had.
I had to read this text for class, all about postmodern historiography. In it, the author argues that instead of following a single linear view of history, a historian should instead take part in a continual sorting through the debris of time. And of course, since I wanted to do anything but schoolwork at the time, this quote made me think about Outer Wilds. In Outer Wilds, you kind of act as a historian. You're a fresh-faced astronaut sent to explore the solar system, armed with a brand new translator and a web-like info log in your spaceship. you find clues related to an ancient civilization called the Nomai, who inhabited the solar system before you. But 22 minutes later, the sun goes supernova, and you're right back where you started. By turning the history of this mysterious culture into a collection of fragments scattered across a dying solar system, Outer Wilds asks you to sort through the debris of time. The game does this over and over, opening up multiple branching pathways and histories to explore. Wait, do I finally understand postmodernism?
Every film features moments of missing time. It's called editing. But that's just for convenience. What about when you refuse to show something of vital importance? Picnic at Hanging Rock revolves around the disappearance of a group of girls during a school trip. This important moment isn't just omitted. It's a full breakdown in film grammar, a sudden switch from static to erratic.
Miranda, don't go up there! Come back!
Films can tell non-linear stories, but the actual film itself is experienced as a linear series of events. So to omit a key story moment is a big statement. It creates a hole at the heart of the narrative that can grow in the mind of the viewer. The fact that the girls disappeared is important, but the disappearance itself isn't. Instead, we focus on those left behind, struggling to process an unexplained event. And by omitting the disappearance, the audience itself is experiencing a moment of missing time.
Time limits are intrinsically stressful. When you can do nothing to stop a constantly draining resource, every action or inaction's best case scenario is to be less of a loss than it could have been. Take for example Pokemon Snap. You're a fantasy wildlife photographer who can't die or even lose, but because everything is time sensitive, players always end up panicking for the best shot, despite the comfy aesthetic. So the inescapable withering of everything gets players jumpy. That's great for horror and the occasional climax, but generally you'd want a player comfy and engaged. However, setting a time limit can actually cause the opposite effect when properly implemented. For example, in a competitive game, a ticking clock means different things for different players. Typically, the player in the lead no longer needs to worry about racking up points or whatever, they just need to maintain their lead. Obviously, this can take the weight off the frontrunner's shoulders, but bizarrely, this can also help the player lagging behind. By taking long game options off the table, winning strategies become more realizable. It's easier to pull out something surprising if you know the rhythm. Plus, when you've got nothing, all or nothing isn't a gamble, it's a Hail Mary. Even if you end up losing harder than you would have, it's actually a relief to know that if it doesn't pay off, then you wouldn't have won anyway.
Have you ever been waiting for something, counting down the minutes, but they just seem to be going so slow? You want to skip ahead until it's over, but you can't.
Vous avez l'air d'attendre quelque chose, pas quelqu'un.
That's the feeling Agnes Varda taps into with her movie Cleo from 5 to 7, about a woman who's anxiously waiting for medical test results to determine if she has cancer. The film takes a real-time approach, starting at 5 o'clock and going to about 6:30, the time she's supposed to meet her doctor. As the audience, we're both watching Cleo and right next to her, having to go through the same agonizing wait she does. A taxi ride that might seem mundane is shown in its entirety. We find out the results the same time as her. The film doesn't want us to skip ahead and know more than Cleo does. The ending of the film is a relief. Don't mistake that for me spoiling the results of Cleo's test, but it's simply the fact that it's over that satisfies us. The passage of time structures the film and looms over it, reminding the characters and the audience that we're powerless against it. All we can really do in these situations is wait for it to be over.
Time is a fascinating construct. There are numerous films that handle this concept, whether Boyhood, Groundhog Day, or the mini works of Christopher Nolan. Of these, none shines more than Night is Short, Walk On Girl from director Masaki Uesa, who I would tell you about, but I'm running out of time. Night is Short, Walk On Girl is full of vibrant colors and wacky situations, but there's something revealed about the world in time that is so brilliant. Through the film, we follow a happy-go-lucky young protagonist as she makes her way through an alcohol-filled night just looking for a good time. With each passing interaction, there are hints with watches and clocks of differing perspectives of time. The youth is taking this for granted as they perceive things to be moving much slower because they have less experience, while the elderly are flying through as they have a whole lifetime of experience, so of course these moments don't feel as big to them. So as we're thrust through the lens of this lover boy with rose-tinted glasses for our protagonist, everything seems so daunting for a first love as one mistake could lead to a ruined relationship. But at a certain point you have to stop worrying about what could go wrong and just enjoy what will happen in time.
Here's a magic trick. I can fit 16 years in one panel. Ready? This is, I think, the single worst panel from Invincible from issue 22 in 2005. This is Amber, the only character here who's not being introduced. In the comic, she's barely a person, just a third point in a love triangle. This is Bridget. In the year and a half run of the comic to this point, exactly 7 panels had featured a black woman, and even then only in the background. This is the first line spoken by a black woman, and this is just how Bridget talks. With her are Jenny, an Asian woman, and Corey, who I think is meant to be indigenous, but who is definitely gay. You can tell because he's a slut for boys. He's the first out gay man in the comic. They can't keep track of how his name is spelled, and 2 of his 3 mentions in the comic are about him ditching his friends to bang randos. There may not be many gay characters in the comic, but there have been plenty of gay jokes. I love / hate this panel because it feels obvious to me that someone in 2005 told the creators to include more diversity, and this is how they did it. In adapting the comic for TV, so much of this is improved. Show Amber is black and has a personality and interests. William, a main character, is a normal gay person. And Invincible himself is Asian and voiced by an Asian actor. As a cishet hunky, I can't speak from experience about how shit the last few years have been to LGBTQ+ and BIPOC folks, but to me the 16 years between this and this seem like a long, long time.
Fans of Duke Nukem were thrilled when Duke Nukem Forever began development in 1996. However, people who were born in 1996 would be able to drive a car before the game came out. Duke Nukem Forever was in development for 15 years and spanned 4 different development teams. But Duke Nukem Forever did actually come out, eventually. So how did it use that time? Did Duke's many developers actually use those 15 years to hone it into an underrated gem? An unrivaled experience that begs to be remastered for modern systems? Is Duke Nukem Forever good? No.
I keep seeing YouTube videos that advertise their length on their thumbnail. Star Wars 5-hour analysis, Pizza Hut 7-hour analysis, Teletubbies 16-hour analysis. Oh, I would actually watch that last one. The length is, in itself, a selling point. Important enough to use this valuable real estate to advertise what I can already see right here. I've heard speculation that we love long videos because the algorithm wants us to. But while the algorithm can shove them in my face, it can't make me watch the whole thing. And oftentimes, I do. I love long videos. I like to watch them while cooking and folding laundry. I like to spend time with a video so it can percolate deep into my brain. I wouldn't know how to shorten H. Bomberguy's 2-hour Pathologic video or Arlo's 3.5-hour Breath of the Wild video. Sometimes it just takes a certain amount of time to cover a thing in detail, and I crave detail. Teach me things, persuade me, I want that. When it's the right person and the right video, I'm glad I gave them the attention, but I never feel more cheated than when a video prioritizes its length over the desire to respect my time.
Movies skip the boring stuff. Imagine for a second that if every time a character went to sleep in a film, instead of cutting to the morning, the camera just sat there for 8 hours until he woke up. Can you say boring? When writing a movie, we cut out all the mundane day-to-day moments for the sake of the action. Bathroom break? Cut it. Awkward silence? Forget about it. And a lot of times, we start to feel this hustle and bustle in our daily lives. In a world where productivity and efficiency are prioritized, any lulls in the action feel like wasted time. And that's why it was such a welcome surprise to me while watching 2019's It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood to see the film take a step back and breathe. No snappy cuts, no witty dialogue, just a full minute of sweet, sweet silence. Granted, it's a little bit awkward at first, but that's okay. While editing is surely useful to skip the boring stuff, Mr. Rogers is reminding us here that every now and then, it might be worth your while to pause and enjoy the silence.
If I had to describe Mono no Aware to someone who'd never heard of it, without being too abstract or literal, I'd call it sadness that time moves on. We've all been at points in our lives where we just stand there and think, I wish this moment would last forever. Maybe it's a particularly fun holiday, a day out with friends, a nice relaxing night at home. Maybe it's a literal moment, basking in the victory of a well-fought game, a brief moment of affection between you and a loved one, the first time you heard your favorite song. These moments can be so wondrous to experience that it makes their inevitable end seem a tragedy. But just because they end doesn't mean they leave us. Time moves on, new moments occur, but what happened still happened. The past still lingers within. Cherry blossoms are destined to fall, but that doesn't mean they never grew in the first place.
Every installment of the Grand Theft Auto franchise has been more technically sophisticated than the last. And GTA 5, the newest one, upped the ante by featuring 3 playable characters all going about their lives in parallel. So how is GTA 6 gonna top that? 4 characters? 5 characters? No. I think instead of having different characters, they should have different time periods. Time travel. Imagine it's set in Liberty City, but you can travel there in the 20s, or the 50s, or the 80s, and you see how the city evolves over time. Maybe there's even quests where you go back in time and destroy major landmarks and it changes the present. See, the GTA series has been consistently pushing the envelope for 3D worlds. But a game world that features time travel would be a 4D game world. Not only do you have to figure out where things go, you have to figure out when they were built. And I personally think 3D game worlds are kind of peaking. We have games that generate open worlds orders of magnitude larger than the Earth itself. So I think games moving into 4th dimensional spaces like this is probably an inevitability, and I hope Rockstar leads the way on it once again.
How mindfulness benefits you. I don't want to be the millionth person to preach to you about the present moment, so I'll just speak from my direct experience from what I've seen. Whether you're listening to the sound of my voice or not paying attention, all thinking about what you're gonna eat for dinner, you're here no matter what. It's impossible to be stuck in the past and future, yet we still feel like we cannot be here and now. So why is that? This is due to where our attention is focused. Overthinking, worrying, procrastination. These things all arise from habitually focusing where our attention goes from the very day we're born. To stop doing this, mindfulness must not only be evoked, but trained. Whether it be Eastern forms of yoga or meditation daily, one can see that spending time on right now and nothing else eliminates the fixation on past mistakes and worries of the future. You might argue that planning for the future is important, but there's a clear difference between using our minds for practical purposes sparingly instead of beating it to death 24/7. With great power and great responsibility, always Joe.